Have you ever had one of those days where you put in a ton of hours, but at the end of it, you feel like you got nothing done? It's this super frustrating feeling, right? We've all been sold this idea that success means working these crazy 12-hour days, just grinding it out. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? Okay, let's get into it because today we're going to flip that idea completely on its head. And this, right here, is the core idea we're going to unpack. Now, this isn't just some nice-sounding quote. There's some really fascinating science and real-world proof behind it. I know, the idea that you could cut your work hours and actually get more done sounds kind of nuts, but stick with me. The logic behind it is surprisingly solid, and it all kicks off with a pretty wild story. So to really see how this works in the real world, let's talk about a story our source materials author shared about a friend of his. You see, this guy stumbled upon a massive productivity secret, not because he planned it, but because he had no other choice. It was a total accident, and the results were just staggering. Okay, so picture this. You're used to working 12-hour days. That's your normal. But then, bam, your health takes a major hit. Suddenly, you can only work for 3 hours a day, and not a single minute more. For most of us, that sounds like a career-ending disaster, right? I mean, how could you possibly get everything done? Well, for this guy, this massive limitation actually became his secret weapon. The change was just night and day. Before, in his 12-hour days, yeah, he was busy. But he was busy with stuff that didn't really matter. Busy work, endless emails, meetings about meetings. He felt productive, but he wasn't really moving the needle. But when his time got cut down to just 3 hours, he was forced to get absolutely ruthless. He had to figure out what the 1 or 2 most important things were and just do those. And the result? He actually got more done than ever before. So that leads us to the big question, doesn't it? It just doesn't seem to make sense. How on earth can you cut your work time by 75% and see your results go up? Well, it's not magic. The answer is hiding in a couple of powerful mental traps that shape how we think about work. And this is where we get into the cool science behind all this. See, our brains have these little glitches, these mental models, that lock us into really inefficient habits, and we don't even know what's happening. So to get the 4-hour advantage, we first have to understand what these two traps are. First up, we've got a classic Parkinson's law. You have definitely felt this before, even if you didn't know it had a name. It's super simple. If you have a week to do something that should only take 2 hours, that task will somehow get more complicated and seem more important, and it will take you the entire week. All that extra time doesn't make you more efficient, it just creates clutter. And this just nails it, right here. Think about it. The last time you had a project due way off in the future, you probably spent a ton of time on extra stuff, tweaking things forever, and let's be honest, probably procrastinating a little. Now, what if you were told you had to get that exact same thing done in just 3 hours? You'd cut all the fluff, make fast decisions, and you'd just get it done. Okay, so trap number 2 is what's called the linearity bias. This is that little voice in your head that whispers, hey, if you work 10% more, you'll get 10% more results. It's this super common but totally wrong belief that the effort you put in and the results you get out are always going to be a perfect one-to-one match. This is basically the myth that powers the whole hustle culture machine. And this chart just shows you why that's so wrong. We think these 2 bars should be the same height. We just assume they are. But the reality is, a tiny amount of really focused, smart work can create a huge, outsized result. Think about it. That 8th hour you work in a day is never, ever as productive as your first hour. Not all hours are created equal, not even close. All right, so we've laid out the problem. Our brains are kind of lazy with time, and we think more hours always equals more results. So what do we do about it? Let's talk about the solution. It's an actual strategy called the work compression protocol, and it's all about creating an inverse Parkinson's law, basically weaponizing the clock to work for you, not against you. And the potential results here are just insane. By using a really tight deadline as a forcing function, you can actually boost your productivity by something like 400 to 500%. A forcing function is just a fancy term for a limit that forces you to act in a certain way, like putting your alarm clock on the other side of the room. You're forced to get up. In this case, the limited time forces your brain to stop getting distracted and go into a state of deep focus, or flow. And that's where your best work happens. So, the protocol itself is actually really simple. Step 1, decide on your time. Maybe it's 4 hours, maybe it's 6, let's just say 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Step 2, and this is the absolute key, it's non-negotiable, you have to ban all work after that deadline. Laptop closed, phone away, no cheating. And step 3
Inside that short window of time, you only work on the things that actually give you big results.
But okay, how do you actually do step 3? How do you get that ruthless with your priorities? You need a filter, and here it is. Constantly ask yourself, is this a low-value $10 an hour task, or is this a high-value $1,000 an hour task? Your job is to find the 1 or 2 activities that give you 80% of your wins, and then be totally merciless about getting rid of, automating, or handing off everything else.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. If, tomorrow, you were forced to stop working at noon, no exceptions, what would you do differently? What meetings would you instantly cancel? What notifications would you shut off? What tasks would you suddenly realize were never really that important in the first place? The answer to that question, that's your first step to getting your time back and unlocking a whole new level of productivity.